Usually the path of most successful producers is to make hit songs and eventually move to a big city like Los Angeles or London and be where all the action is happening. I did that too, and I even built my dream studio in London. Welcome to the new studio. But today I'm leaving it for good. It's the end of an era. I'm done. Let me explain why. So, I'm gonna be leaving the studio for good. My time here is done, and it's time for a new chapter. You might be wondering, where are you gonna be moving to next? You always seem to be moving. Well, you're gonna have to wait to the end of the video, but I bet you $1 million you have no idea where it's gonna be because it's somewhere unexpected. So you can leave a comment now, leave a comment below, let me know where you think it is, and then check back later, no skipping. I've got boxes upon boxes, gonna be packing up, putting all my equipment away, and then start all over. Let's go. So back in 2020, I was making beats in the spare room of my apartment. I turned that into a home studio. Ooh. It was time for the next step. It was time for a progression. And I was super heavy into watching Kenny Beats. That was like my guy, my role model. I used to watch a lot of his Twitch replays. And I remember one in particular where he was talking about his whole career completely changed once he decided to create a studio, a place where artists felt like they wanted to come and record.
You can pull up at me whenever you want. Yeah, pull up at me. I think having your own studio as a producer is one of the most valuable things you can do. That's how I got every placement. My space wasn't super nice.
They could just pull up whenever. There was no time restrictions or noise complaints. And I really liked that idea. I thought I wanted to do the same thing. I want to create a space where people can just pull up. So I went out looking for studio spaces and I eventually found the perfect one, like the most perfect place, right in the center of London. And I decided to just like really make it my own. I did it up, made it a space where people could come over and we could make some really good vibes. But out of nowhere, I got a text from the landlord. And usually back then, I never really communicate with the landlord, just pay my rent and everything is smooth. But I got a text from him, he said it was urgent, I need to speak to him on the phone. And when I saw that, I just knew something was up. Like I felt something in my stomach. My instincts was telling me, damn, this is not gonna be a good phone call. So I called him up, we spoke on the phone, and he told me the owner of the building that my studio was in had sold the building. And pretty much everyone in the building had 2-3 weeks maximum to move out and go find another studio. I was kind of stressing out because not only did I put so much time and investment into this place was literally like my baby, it was my home, my pride and joy. And unfortunately, I had to just give it up and I had to go look for somewhere new. So I was forced to move. But luckily, I found a really, really amazing studio. It wasn't in the center of London, it was completely far out. Honestly, this place, if you didn't know, you would never find it because it's like on a back alley from the outside. It doesn't look like a studio, but as soon as you step in, it's like Narnia. There was multiple studios, and this place was like popping. I'd walk in and sometimes meet famous rappers in the UK, meet famous producers. All the producers there had something going on. Everyone was like really pushing hard for placements. So I was now in a place where things were happening. There was energy, things was moving. And although it wasn't like a great location, the actual studio itself was better quality. I had soundproof walls and I basically just built my studio from scratch again and got to work. And these months are probably like one of the most productive months that I had in a while. But then out of nowhere, my old landlord called me up again and he was like, "What's good, Ocean? I got the building next door, do you want to come back to Soho?" And once he said those words, it's like everything kind of crumbled. I couldn't stop thinking about the studio and being back in central London. So I pulled the trigger and I moved my studio back to central London. Even though the studio I just moved to was good, the energy about being in the city, I was in a great routine of making music, then I'd listen to it in my headphones and go for a long walk around the Thames. It was just a vibe. But honestly, towards the end of the year, I started to crash and burn really, really fast. I was working extremely hard, like I was in the studio non-stop. 5 days a week I'd be sleeping there, I'd be doing sessions, making videos, making new beats. I just felt like I wasn't really progressing. I felt like I was stagnating as a producer. And if you're like me, you know that's not a good feeling. You always want to be progressing. And I remember one day I was just speaking to my mum and she's like, "Have you ever thought about just leaving the country again, like just living somewhere else?" And honestly, up until that point, I never really thought about it because realistically, London is such a hub for music, especially in England. It's like the capital of Europe. People don't really move out of big hubs. Usually you just move into the hub to get it cracking. And I always felt like, why would I leave such a place? Like, this is the place to be. This is where the opportunities are. But then I sat for a while and I really started to think about it. In order to be a successful music producer, do you have to be in a major city? I'm sure you've heard this quote so many times before, but in the music industry, it's not about the music most of the time. It's really about who you know, who you're connected with. And in a big city, that's what it's really good for. Sometimes in a big city, you just bump into random people. Like that time I was in the music store and I met Wiley. It's a big investment. Wiley, how you doing, man? I'm a big fan.
Respect, nice to see you.
You too, man.
Oh, you produce as well?
Yeah.
Take my number.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, take my number.
I remember one day I was sitting in the studio. I didn't really have anything going on that day. I was kind of just chilling, sitting on my hands, making a beat here and there, but procrastinating. And a friend sent me a DM and said that he's free. Could I come through and have a session? So I thought, why not? Pull up. And that evening we made an incredible song. It was just really spontaneous, really free flowing. And we just had a great time in the studio. It was just such a good vibe.
Jeez.
What a vocal. That sounds amazing.
What a
man.
production.
That sounds amazing.
What a filmmaker. I'm just a simp. I'm just a simp.
And that's what being in a big studio is good for. You can be really spontaneous, and these spontaneous moments just lead to great music a lot of the times. Back in the days, I'm not even gonna lie, I loved making guitar and flute trap beats. Like, that was my bread and butter. We'll have the second guitar. My favorite kind of beats to make. But I always wondered, like, how would it sound if we got a real flute player and brought him to the studio to play the flute on my beat? So I did just that. I hired a flute player called Bella Band. She pulled up, she smashed it on the flutes.
Yeah, that's good. That's actually what people do to warm up the flute.
Oh,
You
okay.
just did.
I was trying to play. And that went on to be like one of the biggest videos for me, and that turned into like a whole series of me hiring professional musicians. I hired a harp player, opera player. I even brought a mariachi band to the studio to come and make beats with me. And honestly, without being in a major city like London, I don't know if I could have pulled that off. Like, sure, I could have hired some musicians remotely on a place like Fiverr, but there's something about them coming to the studio and having that energy and just vibing off each other and making music. In a massive city as well, naturally, the best of the best comes there. You're able to meet and work with some of the most talented people. I've been able to work with some incredible rappers, some incredible singers. And because of this, I've just leveled up completely as a music producer. Instead of just making beats in my bedroom, I've now been able to work on songs, really understand how to produce a song and get the best out of an artist. And this is kind of like an education you can't really buy. This is just pure experience that comes with time. But honestly, being in a big city, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Back in 2020, when I got the studio, I had a goal, and it was to get major placements with big artists. And with all these studio sessions that I was doing, with all these hours that I was spending working with these artists, it didn't really, let's just say it didn't really necessarily turn out that way. This game is definitely a game of patience, and I had some close ones, like making a song and the producer promising me on the spot, like, yeah, we're definitely gonna drop this, and then having the timeline and the rollout all planned for it to just not drop and never really hear much about it again. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it, it's kind of shit and a bit disheartening, but the game is the game. In this time period, I did get one major placement, and that one major placement actually came from a loop that I sent out in a loop kit. Personally, I'm really super inspired by producers like Al Hug, Des Wright, Ozzy, who are able to stay in their corners of the world, but yet work on the biggest records and work with some of the biggest artists in the world. And it just kind of shows you that it's really not impossible just to do everything on the internet. The fact that my biggest placement came from a loop kind of made me feel like maybe I would have been more productive if I was just making way more loops and sending them out to more producers. I also recently had a conversation with a producer who was on a Grammy-nominated album, been on like #1s, and had a ridiculous amount of placements, like 35 placements or something in a single year. And he was doing this completely from his house in Denver, Colorado, which is definitely not a music hub. And he even said like he doesn't really even like to leave too much. He doesn't really even like to leave the city. That conversation with a producer called Kavi, it just made me think like, damn, the internet is really that powerful. If you want to check out that conversation, by the way, it's on a podcast that I did with Jay Cactus, LB and Kavi, and I'll link it in the description below. Tons of gems for producers in there. I think as well, being in a major city, sometimes you can really get lost in the source. Like everyone's kind of doing the same thing to try and get placements, to try and work in the music industry. Even though it's good to be around a lot of creative energy, sometimes in order to find your true creative genius and to find your point of difference, you need to be away from the noise. Like I was saying before, I was working extremely hard, but not necessarily progressing, kind of feeling stagnant. And like my guy Carl Beats says,
If nothing changes, nothing can change.
if nothing changes, then nothing changes. So it's time to make a change. Today is the last day in the studio. As you can see, all my stuff packed up in these suitcases. This is the final one. This is the final time. Just for old memory's sake, got a little bit of donut time. If you know, you know, you're a true OG.
That's funny.
Just banging. Cheers. Oh, hi there. Welcome. Come through. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of where I'm staying at and the setups that we got going on at the moment. So as you come through the door, 100K plaque as a light reminder. We've got the Milli one coming soon if you subscribe to the channel. And then here, this is the setup number one, I guess you could say. It's way more minimal. It's just exactly what you need, the core essentials, my laptop, some wireless speakers, mini keyboard. And then we've also got like a really nice view of the city on this side. This place is such a vibe to cook up with. This place is such a vibe to cook up at night. Like, I love it. When I want to switch up and just have something a little bit minimal, I come here and I cook up. And then I've also got a second setup, which is the main setup. That's the home studio. Let me show you how that looks. This room right here is the home music studio. It's not finished, but we've got the bare essentials with me. I managed to bring some stuff in my suitcase, like my microphone, my audio interface, even my monitors. That's all I could fit. So all the other stuff is going to come. I found a nice desk, got a chair. We got the simps that are going to be coming, I think tomorrow. I'm going to put them right here. And then I've still got some space on this side. Maybe I'll put like a piano or something. We got a nice little view outside as well. But if you want to see the full music studio tour once it's ready, because I'm going to build this into a 6 space, then make sure you hit the like button. Let's get to 3K likes and I'll put that out for you guys. So, do you need to be in a big city to succeed as a music producer? The answer can be yes, and the answer can be no. It really just depends on your goals and what you want out of it. I've seen producers on both sides, those who are really in the rooms, really in the mix, in the big cities, killing it, doing their thing. But then I've also seen producers who literally never leave their small country in Europe, have the biggest records with some of the biggest artists in the world. So, yes and no. If you're in a really small city where not much is happening around you, the good thing is the internet exists. Like, that's your friend, that's your connection to the world. You can really use that to your advantage and make connections with people all around the world and get it cracking. Right now I'm in a place that I moved to when I was 19 and I lived here for a few years. And honestly, this place has like a special place in my heart. Like, I love the energy here. It's chaotic, it's vibrant. And I'm a person that's really inspired by their surroundings, by their environment. With these new experiences, I can really channel that into some creative energy and make some really cool, interesting stuff. One of the highlights of 2023 for me was being able to DJ at a festival. And being here, it kind of opens me up to more opportunities in that world, which I definitely want to explore. And if you haven't guessed already, the place that I am in right now is Bangkok, Thailand. I appreciate you watching and tuning into my videos all these years. Let's keep growing and going as we continue on this journey. Love.